Connor Landick.
What's going on, brother?
Dude, never been better. Good to see you here.
You too, man. Good to
What's,
be here.
what's going on?
Not too much, man. Hanging out with you, drinking some kombucha, and excited to eat some food in a bit too.
Yeah, man. How was your day today?
It was great, man. I got up, went to the gym. We had a great training session. We had a big class today. The energy was great. Everybody was training hard, working hard, smiling, having fun. So that's what jiu-jitsu should be all about.
So we're talking about Lake Effect Jiu-Jitsu,
Correct.
Marquette, Michigan,
Correct. Yep.
1904, Prescott Avenue.
Correct. Come see us, man. Come
For
check
real.
it out.
For real. And what's that been like? I mean, what's a big class?
Well, I think we had around 17 today, so that's pretty good for a Saturday. A lot of times it's anywhere between 10 and 12 is I consider a good group of people there on a Saturday. So yeah, we had a big group. The mat was full. We didn't have much space
Right.
to have more groups going. So
Right.
it's good to have.
And it's a brand new location.
Brand new location. We just moved in a few weeks ago. So it's bigger, more space. It's nicer. We got more space for changing rooms, bigger bathroom, all that. Hopefully soon we'll have a shower in
Right,
there,
right.
so people can come and train and then take a shower and go off to work or wherever it is they're gonna do. So
Whatever they got to do.
yep,
It's closer to the lake.
closer to the lake. So Lake Effect Jiu-Jitsu, we're right there, and we can go jump in afterwards too. That's a staple. So
It's huge. It's just kind of streamlining the whole process, the whole experience.
yeah, and the location's great as far as people being able to see it when they drive by. So we're excited about that. And
It's hard to miss the giant Rasta-colored peace sign on the front of the
yeah,
building.
exactly. Yeah, and the goal is just to get as many people introduced to jiu-jitsu and started on their journey as possible. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And you say good energy this morning, and that can sound, I mean, this is essentially a fighting,
Right.
right? A fighting club or a fight gym, it gets that connotation sometimes of being notorious for whatever
Yeah.
injuries. But you say good energy. How do you mean that?
Well, I mean, the cool thing about martial arts, and I feel jiu-jitsu especially, even though it's you're trying to submit your partner, you're trying to dominate the positions and get the submission, and that's the goal. But at the same time, when the team's really working well together, even though that we're doing that and we're competing against each other, we also have each other's best interests in mind, and the goal is ultimate growth for everybody while keeping everybody safe. And that alone, I believe, builds a really strong community of people because they understand, you have to trust one another in jiu-jitsu to be able to work well with each other. You have to know that, someone's not going to try to hurt me here. We're
Right.
just training, so. And we've come a long way with that as a gym. And yeah, so when I say good energy, it just, man, you can feel it. It's palpable when there's a group of people training hard and people are smiling and laughing and having fun. Even though we're going hard, we can be going 100%, but at the same time, we're still having fun.
Yeah,
That's
and
the goal.
that's the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu as a martial art too,
Yeah.
is you can go hard,
Yeah.
without punching each other in the face,
Right, yeah,
without
there's-
really causing any serious lasting damage to one another.
100%. That's, you can basically, yeah, you can train as hard as you want, and as long as you're, there's limits to that. Obviously, you still got to keep each other safe, right?
For sure.
And it's on you to tap when you're in a position that it requires it. But at the same time, yeah, you can train really, really hard, and you leave no worse to wear at the end.
Right, and it's a heck of a workout.
To me, it's one of the best that I've found. It's one of the toughest workouts that I've done as
And
far
that's
as
that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot with considering what you've done with your endurance,
Yeah.
and with your cardio and even strength training.
Yep. Yeah.
You're a veteran canoe racer
Right. Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time doing that, and that presents its own challenges. But at the end of the day, I think jiu-jitsu is still physically and mentally tougher than that sport at the end of the day.
Well, that's interesting you say that. But honestly, body style, I found this, I've been fascinated with this idea lately, is everybody's body style is meant to fit a certain activity.
Yeah.
And what helped me realize this was biking, mountain bike riding,
Right.
because you got, little shorter spark plug guys
Mm-hmm.
who are super powerful athletes, and they can blast up hills and they can explode down hills, and they can, be very, very fast and nimble on their bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have somebody who's tall and lengthy and a lot of leverage with their cranks and everything like that, their lung capacity tends to be greater, and they actually do well in those 100-mile, 200-mile, 300
Cool.
mile races.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is very similar to that. And I think you have to learn how to use your body to its best advantage. You know.
right. And I mean, you've been competing now for real heavy for 4 years.
Yeah, I'd say for the last 4 years, I've been competing very consistently.
Right.
So
And that adds a whole new dynamic to the sport. It's more than just a recreational hobby for you at this point.
yeah,
This is
yeah. I mean, it's basically what I'm trying to do as a career choice. I want to teach jujitsu, and I also want to be a competitor. But I think at the end of the day, I love competing. There's no feeling like it when you go out there and compete and you win and you succeed at something that, say, maybe you failed at for a long time and you just were unwilling to give up. You just kept showing up, you just kept training, and eventually you have your day. And that's one of the best feelings that exist. But still, at the end of the day, I think jiu-jitsu is more than that. It's about helping other people find their way. That's what it did for me, and that's what I truly believe it has the power to do for anybody that's willing to put the work in.
yeah, young men, young women,
Every
older
yeah,
women, older men.
jiu-jitsu for
It's
everyone. That's the goal. Is
right.
And obviously not everyone's going to be a competitor. Not everyone's going to want to take that path. But I do believe that everyone can be a part of jiu-jitsu, and it can add benefit to their life.
Right, in a very positive way. And just to find freedom in maybe some of the, vulnerability, and maybe seeing like, hey, maybe things aren't so bad.
Yeah.
I found that during jiu-jitsu, you find yourself in a lot of very difficult situations.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
100%.
it doesn't really compare when you run out of gas or
Right. No, yeah, you leave the gym and I always feel just lighter. I feel like I can face the world better. That's what it does for me. So, and I've seen it do it for a lot of people.
I
And
bet
it's beautiful.
because you traveled.
Yeah, yeah, I've spent quite a bit of time traveling to different gyms and seeing it and what it does for people.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's truly been a blessing to me to just discover something I'm that passionate about and give me a path in life.
Yeah. Now that being said, what's keeping you here? What's keeping you in Marquette doing this? Because it is everywhere.
So, yeah, the biggest thing that keeps me in Marquette is the community of people that we've already built in our gym that are committed to jiu-jitsu, the students, not only the adults, but the kids program we've built. I believe it's a great program and it's helping people's lives, and that alone makes me want to just work that much harder to keep improving the lives of anyone I can through jiu-jitsu.
Right. And you have these opportunities where you can kind of reach out into a greater wealth of knowledge through, big professional names,
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky to be able to travel and see some of these guys.
and then bring it back here
Right.
for the people that we have coming to Lake Effect.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep.
That's huge because it keeps the ball rolling, because stagnant water, tends to fester and get.
Yeah, I think anytime you're in a small community and you're trying to grow in whatever area it is, it's important to travel and become inspired by some of these big name guys and see how they behave as humans.
Big time.
So,
Big time.
yeah.
Because, I mean, some of these dudes, they're capable of humbling a lot of people. Big guys, small guys, men, women, what have you. I mean,
For sure.
and they don't walk around like they got something to prove.
No, yeah, like I said, I've been in the presence of some of the biggest names in the sport. Lucas Lepre, Fabio Gugel, Leon Nogueira, Cobrinha, These guys are all big inspirations to me, and not only as competitors but as human beings. So that's kind of the example that's been set, and I've been just really lucky to be introduced to some of those guys. Our teacher Mark Plavkin down in Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, he really helped us bring our gym to the next level, and he also introduces us to all these guys that are just amazing competitors
Right.
and people.
On the cutting edge.
Yeah.
And did you ever think it would get to this point? I mean, you started out in the basement of a tattoo studio as a kid who liked to skateboard, grew up in Marquette,
Yep.
and I mean, it's come a long way, man.
Yeah, it's come a long way in a short time, and I honestly no, if you would have asked me, 6 years ago, would I be teaching jujitsu in Marquette? No, I never would have thought that. No, but I was just really lucky to be introduced to some of the people I have been,
Hmm.
and it put me on a different path, and it's been a good path for me.
Why'd you get started? I mean, take yourself back to that like
In
mindset,
in just why did I start doing jujitsu for myself, or why did I start teaching?
Why'd you start doing it for yourself?
Well, I suppose the when I first started doing jujitsu, I was actually doing some other martial arts. I was doing some Muay Thai and things like that, and there was a group of guys that were just doing some rolling because they were preparing for mixed martial arts fights. And I just kind of started rolling around with those guys, and I realized how much fun it was. And then back, I was 23 when I first met Nick, and he was the guy that really like inspired me and showed me like what jujitsu can be. And he's a big reason probably why I'm doing this today. Without him, I don't know if I would be. So I'm really grateful for that. And but I guess the biggest reason I started doing it was I just needed an outlet for a lot of energy that I had. I had a lot of energy. Not all of it was the best energy, and jujitsu helped calm some of that down. And when I found that, and then the deeper I got into it, it was just there was just no turning back. Almost, it was just I'd never felt that good
Right.
after training, and especially once I started going down to Madison and seeing the gym down there and training with Mark and his guys. And once I got my blue belt, it was just I was hooked,
Yeah.
and it'd be hard to imagine my life without jujitsu now. I don't know how I would
Right.
do it.
Right. And how do you balance like not taking it too seriously? Because it can get that way.
Yeah, no, I especially when it comes to competition, I think, and I'm an extremely competitive person, so that has been a struggle for me in the past. But I guess the thing that balances it for me the most is that the thing that I love the most about competing is the process of preparing for the competition. So I guess I just try to focus on on having fun. Obviously, I take it very seriously because it's my career. It's what I spend most of my time doing and thinking about. But at the same time, like you said, anything can become too serious, and you gotta continue to have fun in the process. And anytime that I've felt like I've just become too focused on results, that's when I've lost the passion and the love for the process. Is when I'm just thinking about the podium and not what's going to get me there, because that really is where the joy comes in. The result of a competition, the high you get from that lasts a few hours for the rest of the night maybe, and then it's just back to normal life as it was. So I think the biggest thing is making sure you're enjoying the process of what you're doing.
What a trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it ever get hard?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, jujitsu is not easy in general.
What stands out to you as far as like, is it physically, mentally, the
It's
whole gamut?
it's physically and mentally challenging. Obviously, there's times it can be hard on your body, and when it's your job, you don't have the option to just stay home.
Yeah.
If you got something banged up, you just gotta find a way to get
Yeah.
through it. So that can be not only physically but mentally challenging.
Yeah.
And but at the end of the day, I've certainly gone through those periods where I've been training too hard, too much. My body started to break down, and I had to step back and reevaluate and take the best approach. So,
Right.
but
And
yeah,
there's everything. Every pursuit has those days where you don't want to go in, you don't want to wake up, you don't want to drive there.
yes.
What comes to you when you're in that mindset of, I can't do this anymore, I don't want to do this anymore? How do you find a way?
You just show up. You just get in the car and go, I guess.
You got
And
to get through
and
the door.
and eventually it becomes easier. Like on those days where I'm sore and beat up, it's almost not even a thought anymore that I'm not going to go to the gym. It's what I do. And I think when it when you start to see the results of what you're doing, that's when it becomes easier and easier to go on those days that you'd rather stay home. Because you know that when you continue to put in this hard work that you will find the results. You just never know when sometimes. That can be
Hmm.
the challenging part. One of the coolest things that I've heard this is what Mark said, is that jiu-jitsu won't ever give you anything that you haven't earned. And you won't ever know exactly when you put in that work, but it will show up eventually. And you won't know how or in what way. And to me, that's just a great metaphor for life. So,
Yeah, you never know what's going to come of your effort today.
yeah, a lot of days it's nothing. A lot of days you don't see anything maybe, but you keep chipping away at it and you see more and more and more. You get better on the mat, you feel better mentally, you start to become happier, I think, you know.
Hmm.
So,
How is it transferred over to like everyday life? Because I think people have that, maybe have a hard time seeing. Okay, you're doing a martial art, you're learning how to submit opponents, you learn how to defend yourself. Great. How does this transfer over? Because it's not all physical. It's like you're not getting attacked by people on a daily basis. But
no.
how does it really transfer over to your daily routine and things like that?
Well, I mean, I guess
Or even how could it for somebody who's not doing it as a career?
right. Yeah, I mean, for someone who's just working a 9 to 5 job or whatever the job may be, and they're just looking to just have some fun. To me, the biggest thing it does is it's fun. It gives you a sense of community. It introduces you to a group of good people that are also working hard and that you have to be able to trust. So it essentially creates like a small family that you have beyond your regular family.
Right.
And to me, that's probably the most valuable thing it's given me is just, you know, us the people I guess that I've come in contact with through jujitsu has probably been the coolest part about it
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Right.
And also the fact that we're all helping each other grow every time that we're on the mat training. And so and how it transfers to life, I think is it gives you something when you're on the mat, when you're training, it's hard to have to think about anything else. It's hard to think about your problems. You're just there. It puts you in the moment.
Hmm. So
And
presence.
it gives you presence. And then when you leave, it just, like I think we were talking about this earlier today, that, you're in some of these positions and they're so challenging and you're in the middle of a workout and you're like, how am I even going to make it through this whole workout? And you don't know at the time, but you do make it through the workout. And then it makes the challenges of life just not quite as scary. They're not
Right.
quite as big as they were before.
Right. That's a huge one. And then another one, I mean, just with people that you care about, it comes that sense of belonging
Yeah.
and purpose.
Yeah.
Like you do have a purpose. You do have a high, something to serve and higher than yourself. It's not so self-centered.
Yeah.
It's like giving,
Yeah.
right? The
100%.
opportunity to give. And it might not be objects, right? It might not
No.
be material. It might be a moment
Yeah.
that you spend with somebody, or you say just, hey, give them that little quick little tip, and it made their day, man. They
Yeah.
figured that out. They've been doing it for the wrong way for years.
Yeah.
And maybe a kid.
Yeah. To me, that's our kids program I'm really passionate about, and I really believe it's good. It's so good for kids to get involved with jujitsu young.
Yeah.
Whether or not they end up doing it as adults or not, I think the kind of confidence it can instill is just it's hard to get anywhere else.
Right.
I think
Right.
it's hard to get that kind of confidence doing anything else.
Yeah. And it's something that you've taken on full force, man. Like just the way that I've seen you interact with some of those kids over the last 2 years has been, I mean, so special. You learned how to communicate something that means so much to you with people who are looking to grow. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
I've just been really, yeah, thank you. I've been just extremely grateful for the opportunity and for the growth. I mean, working with those kids has made me grow exponentially. I can't even, when I think about 2 years ago working with them, it's been a journey, and we're getting better at it too. It takes a while to learn how to do that stuff, and the better we get at it, the more we can help kids and help adults in the community. And really at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing.
Big time. Big
Yeah.
time. And what kind of results have you seen in these kids?
Oh, I mean, especially you just see kids that come in at first, and especially the ones that have a hard time dealing with challenge, or especially physical challenge. I've seen such growth in a lot of those kids in their ability to push through adversity, and I think that transfers so directly into their lives, because life is hard. There's no getting around the fact that
Life isn't fair.
life isn't fair, life isn't easy. Life is beautiful, but it's not easy, and it's gonna challenge you. And to me, watching the kids grow, being able to push through adversity, is the biggest thing that I see. And also, I think I see more patience in some of the kids that first came in, and just they're calmer.
Yeah.
They interact better with each other. They listen better too. They learn now. We get them. We get them in. We play a game or something. We get some sweat out, and then we learn, and they want to learn, and
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah. And there's I mean, a gamut of ages and body types that you're working with.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at 3 to 5 year olds.
Yeah.
That's something,
Yeah.
right? And that's a different class than our
Yep.
6 to 12. Is that it?
It's 3 to 6 and 7 to 14.
3 to 6, seven to
And
14.
we are currently in the making of trying to start a separate the.
Yeah.
It's going to be hopefully 7 to 11, and then 13 to 16. Because then some of those older kids, we can get a little more in depth on some of the techniques,
Yeah.
and let them get more
And you're
training.
gonna keep the 3 to 6.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's the plan. So
Wow. And that's gonna help out so much to have a high school program.
I think so. I mean, I could have used jujitsu at any time in my life as a kid, but especially when I got to that age where I was, it's hard, especially as a young boy. 12 to 13 is not always the easiest age.
Isn't it a trip to work with kids and to see the tendencies that you didn't recognize before
Oh yeah.
as something that was just normal? Like,
Yeah.
hey, like, young males go through these things.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah. No,
But
it's
at the time, it was you were consumed by it.
yeah, and I certainly struggled through that age. I struggled through school in general, but especially when I got to high school, I had a really difficult time with just school. I didn't want to be there, and so yeah, I mean, I think those kids, they really love it, especially that age group. They all love it, but especially that age group, because the ones that are there at that age group, they're into jujitsu.
They wanna be there.
Yeah, they want to be there, and they're there because it's their choice for the most part, and
Yeah.
they really, and so that's been inspiring to see, and that's why we want to try to expand that program for those kids, to give them more,
Big
because
time.
it can be tough for the kids that are 13 to 16 when there's 7, 8, and 9 year olds running around too. So it's
Big time.
yeah.
And it's been fun too, just seeing more kids get involved. Because when we were in that basement, it's a little different. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's a little different. Bring your kid down there. I can't imagine doing that.
We've become a little bit more legitimate, I would say, since we got our own space, and
There's windows.
Yeah, there's
Like,
windows,
big
and
time.
yeah, it
A
helps.
bathroom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and all that.
Yep.
And I met you 5 years ago
Yeah. Yep.
in that basement.
Yeah, at the first basement too. Yeah.
I didn't really care for you.
we,
You tried to break my
we
arm,
bucked heads a lot, and
and I was very disappointed in that. And it was a different world, man.
yeah, we weren't working very well together yet, and we didn't have much of a structure as far as our learning goes at that point. We were kind of just guys that were getting together and competing against each other and training. And now I believe it's grown to a new level where it's structured. We have classes where we're learning techniques, and then we get to train and try to apply the techniques, and always with the thought in mind of your partner's safety being paramount to everything else. And when we were training at that old place, we just didn't quite have that figured out yet. I think, and we've come a long way.
To have the direction
Yeah,
is key.
very key. Yeah, you got to be. If you just get there are guys that subscribe to the belief that you can just roll and learn that way. I've never learned great that way. Obviously, you have to roll to try to apply the techniques you learn and make them work. But to me, it's very important to be doing repetitions in a pretty structured way to help you grow your jiu-jitsu.
Right. Just like anything else.
Just like anything else, I'm sure when Michael Jordan was playing basketball, how many hours he spent just shooting free throws, just practicing that
Yeah.
over and over and over again. And it's the same in jiu-jitsu. You got to build those connections in your brain.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you grow and get like to be a force, right? You get more of an arsenal. You get more of understanding of the sport. How do you stay humble?
Oh, I go and get beat up by guys when I go travel and I go compete. That's how I stay humble.
Yeah.
Because when I go
You
and
put yourself out there.
yeah, you put yourself out there, and man, I've had some matches where you leave or tournaments and you're like, that just didn't go well that day, and
Yeah.
that humbles you.
Yeah.
And then you get right back to work and you train. So I mean, it's very important to go travel and just, man, there are guys that I roll with that I just feel like there's absolutely nothing I can do, and that also to me, it not only humbles me, but it gives me the even more confidence that in time you will reach a certain level too if you keep training like that.
Yeah.
So
How do you stay kind to people who aren't as far along on their journey?
how to stay kind to 'em?
Kind, yeah, like understanding, like, hey, like, these people are not as far along as they maybe quotation should be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's I don't think I have a hard time staying kind to them.
Well, how do you manage it? Because you do. You
Yeah.
stay kind to them. You're not like, oh, pff,
Right.
these,
Like you,
you
you
know.
you should just know this or something by
Yeah.
yeah.
You don't behave that way. How do you maintain that?
Well, I mean, I guess I
Level of
understand.
compassion.
Yeah, it's a level of compassion, and at the end of the day, like I talked about before, I want to teach everyone. I want to give everyone the best techniques they can get, but at the end of the day, the biggest thing I want them to leave with is just feeling good. And so I keep that in mind when I'm working with people. That's to me, that's paramount. That's the most important thing.
Right.
But as far as, I mean, there's always going to be frustrations and anytime you're working with people in any light. So that's part of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think the thing that I keep in mind is that everybody grows at their own pace. Everybody's different, and everybody learns and grows at their own pace. And I've basically taken, I just focus so much on jujitsu. I don't do anything else. That's my job. And so that, to me, I'm so focused on it all the time that I shouldn't expect everyone to be that. Most people have a job that they're working, doing other things. They come in to just kind of get a workout and train sometimes. And you got to keep that in mind. And just you give them the best you can. I always want to give our students at Lake Effect, the best that I can give them. And obviously, there's days I fall short of that. There's days, because I'm human. There's days you show up and it's like, oh, I could have done better as a teacher. I could have remained more calm and patient. those kinds of things. But then you learn and you just get back on the horse and keep going.
Right. Those are the learning days for the teacher.
There are certainly those days where you leave and you're like, did I help anyone today? And but you get back to it and you take what didn't go well and you look to improve it at the next time that you teach. Just like when you're doing jiu-jitsu, there are days you leave and you're like, I don't know, I didn't feel like I did very well on the mat that day, but some days those are the most important days. Those are the days where you take away and learn the most.
Right. We learn from our losses most times.
Yeah, and you learn a lot more from losing if you can keep the right attitude than you do from winning. If that makes any sense. You can certainly learn from winning too, but I've certainly learned the most about myself through losses. And but not just losing, but keeping going, not giving up when I lost.
Right.
And how much it hurt and all that stuff. I just look at that as how much are you willing to go through to overcome it.
The ability to proceed.
Yes, and that's like I said, that's the biggest thing jiu-jitsu's given me, is just that ability to not give up,
Keep moving.
keep moving forward, keep pushing forward. There's a guy, Jeffrey Donovan, down in Atlanta, and he it gets me emotional just talking about it because he's recently went into the hospital, had a blood clot, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And the guy has remained so positive, and his whole mindset is never give up, keep moving forward, do whatever you can that day to make your life better, even if it looks grim at the time. And to me, that's inspiring. That's the most inspiring thing about jiu-jitsu and the people in it. So,
And you kind of went along with what I was going to ask you next was, do you have external outlets, like anything outside the realm of jiu-jitsu that inspires you, that keeps you, that keeps you fresh?
certainly, I mean, my dad's always been a huge source of inspiration for me. He's, the guy, how passionate he is about. He loves to race canoes and paddle canoes, and his level of passion for that has always been very inspiring to me to just watch. I'm inspired anytime I watch an athlete push through and reach the next level, and no matter what sport it is. It could be anything, because it takes so much dedication and stick-to-itiveness and just the ability to not give up, to become proficient in any sport, that I find inspiration in that.
Yeah, because those are the people who are out there giving it all, and not making excuses.
Yep.
And people are doing that every single day, in whatever pursuit they're on.
Yeah.
They find a way to keep getting back up and keep getting after it.
Yeah.
And sometimes without recognition, sometimes when nobody's looking.
Those are the most important days,
Right. Big time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, we live in a world that tends to be, the recognition for things tends to be more important sometimes than actually doing it itself, And I think it's very important to remember why we're doing anything we're doing. And I think if you're doing anything just for recognition, you're going to lose the passion for it eventually if you don't love it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I get inspired just watching anybody that loves what they're doing. It could be sport, it could be their job. They're just passionate about it, and they're willing to not give up on it no matter what. They've made a choice. They say, I don't care how bad this hurts. I don't care what I got to go through. This is where I'm going, and I'll go through whatever I got to get there.
Dedication.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of fruitless action?
Explain it to me.
Fruitless action is not doing the action, not taking the steps for the fruit on the tree,
Correct. Okay.
right?
Gotcha.
Or for the meal at the end of the day.
Yep.
It's simply taking action based on genuine presence
Yep.
with what you are called to do in that moment. It's dedicated to that moment.
Yeah.
All of your awareness, all of your energy is focused, finite focused, fruitless action.
Hmm.
That cookie, that fruit, what have you, that money,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
None of that is even, you can't even see it.
Hmm.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah.
It's not even there, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, that just came to my head, fruitless action,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that being said, do you have aspirations? Like if you're very fixated, you're very focused on the here and now, what you're doing with jiu-jitsu, do you have aspirations and goals kind of set like benchmarks for yourself down the road?
Yeah. 100%. My goal, my ultimate goal, is to earn my black belt one day and continue to teach. And I want to continue to compete for as long as my body allows me to. I watch, honestly, I was out in Vegas at the Masters Worlds in August, and I saw some people out there, competing in their 60s and 70s. And that was so inspiring to me because those guys aren't making any money. They're not doing it for any other reason than just to be doing it. And the heart that's on display and the will, and it was incredible. So that's what I hope to be someday. Just some grizzled up old black belt, gross looking ears, and still competing as long as I
Yeah.
can, and also helping people. That's, to me, that's the most important thing. And that's, if you're not helping people with your jujitsu, what are you doing with it?
Yeah. What are you doing with it? That's a great question to ask at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, it can become, and it can certainly become a selfish endeavor at times, but at the end of the day, all those times I've spent competing and stuff have given me more of an ability to help other people with it.
Mm-hmm.
So
And do you go into competition with that attitude? Like, I'm going to help my opponent, either win or lose. I'm going to help my opponent.
it depends on the moment. Like before I'm competing, I'm not.
You hate somebody?
No, of course not. I never hate my opponent. I respect them for being there, and I'm grateful for the fact that they're stepping on the mat, because without them, there can be no me, right?
Correct.
There can be no me. But at the same time, I'm there to win, and every time that I step on the mat to compete against somebody, I'm looking at them, and in my mind, I'm going to beat them no matter what it takes. That's the mindset that I bring in when I go to compete. Obviously, I've been on the wrong side of plenty of matches where I had that mindset, like, I'm going to beat this person no matter what. And some days it doesn't work out that way. But I don't lose that attitude. I don't lose that mindset when I go to compete, because every time I step on the mat, I'm coming. I'm coming for you. And
It's a force.
that's the mindset. As soon as the match is over, and obviously I respect them during all the time, but I am always so grateful for my fellow competitors, because, like I said, they're just like your training partners. If you didn't have them, you couldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be able to compete if that person wasn't also willing to step out there and put everything on the line to
Yeah,
test it.
that's a fascinating, just dynamic of a combat sport.
It
Is
is.
you cannot do it without another.
It'd look pretty goofy you doing it alone, I think.
Very, very goofy. I mean, you could do it with a dummy, right?
Yeah,
That
right,
exists, right?
right.
You
But
can punch a heavy bag, but at the end of the day, you can't really see where you're at. You can't really learn from mistakes. You can't really understand what the next level is without competing,
yeah,
and more so without losing.
I believe that wholeheartedly. And like I said before, I think the losses have been some of the biggest growth moments in my life.
Yep.
I've driven. I remember on the flight home from Miami just crying just because I lost the first round. I got out in the first match, and I wanted so bad to win. But like when I look back where I'm sitting at now, it was beautiful. It was someone who wanted so badly to achieve something, and they fell short. And I see other people that do that, and it inspires me when they try again. They don't let that failure and that heartbreak stop them from keep pushing forward.
It's a hindsight 2020 being like, hey, this is not taking the emotions out of it. Hey, this is, Connor Landick from Marquette going down to Miami and competing. He wanted it so bad. This is another person with a dream. This is just another person with a dream. It takes the me out of it and
Yeah.
saying, hey, good on you.
Yeah.
You showed up.
Mm-hmm.
You went down there. I mean, you might be having these conversations with yourself, but just to,
Of course, and I look at it. I used to be, that was something I had to overcome. I was very, very hard on myself whenever I wouldn't succeed or do things almost perfect. I had to overcome that, and that's something that jujitsu's helped me with a bunch, because it's impossible to be perfect all the time. You make mistakes, you get caught, and you realize that you're still okay. You don't have to beat yourself up so bad about it. It's all right. And where I sit now and I look back, yeah, those matches and those times actually mean a lot to me, and I'm very proud of that I was able to just, it's okay, just keep going.
yeah.
And if there's anything anyone could take from jiu-jitsu, it's that.
Right.
So
Without competing.
you can do it without competing,
Right.
of course. Yeah.
Without,
you don't need to compete.
teaching.
Mm.
Right.
No, you just, I mean,
Because
you could
we
train twice a day and you can or twice a week. If you train twice a week, you can get massive benefits from it.
And there's, like you said, that rolling allows us to compete
Mm-hmm.
on a friendly level.
Yep.
Right. Without getting hurt, without going crazy.
Yep.
And you get to experience those little losses, those little battles. Because,
Yep.
jiu-jitsu is a chess match. These are all these strategy.
Yeah.
There's offense, defense going on, and a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
You got arms, legs, necks, knees,
Mm-hmm.
hips, shoulders, wrists,
Yep.
ankles, feet. Dude,
There's a lot to watch out for.
Yeah. It's offense and defense on both sides.
Yeah.
It gets very complicated,
Certainly.
right? That's the one thing I see about jiu-jitsu. It really just intrigues me as a wrestler because it's, man, nothing against wrestling. I freaking love wrestling. You know what I mean?
Of course, I do too. I didn't wrestle, but I think it's one of the toughest sports. That sport is mentally and physically tough, man.
At
Those
the end of
guys
the
are tough.
At the end of the day, man, yeah, I don't care how skilled or technical. If you're a freaking technician, just lengthy or whatever, you're throwing legs, you gotta be aggressive.
Yeah, and
You
right.
gotta be aggressive, and you gotta be willing to take some chances.
Mm-hmm.
And man, jiu-jitsu is just a whole lot less of that. It feels so much more sustainable.
Yeah, it's definitely more sustainable. You don't see a lot of guys competing in wrestling later in life, that's for sure.
Nah.
And the other thing, I mean, the biggest difference to me, wrestling is so much about forward aggression and who can be more physical and athletic for that period of time, because they're short matches, right? They're
6 minutes.
Yeah, right. And jiu-jitsu to me is more about using the forward aggression of your opponent against them to counter and
Yeah, and sometimes those are the best wrestlers who think that way.
the guys, man, you see the technicians there that chain takedowns 3, 4, 5 together to finally get it, and they really didn't strain for any of it because
Right.
they were just taking what their partner was giving to them. That's much more the mindset of jiu-jitsu, and I love all forms of grappling. I think it's very neat. And as far as I've never competed in wrestling, but I've trained with wrestlers, you being one of them, and man, you guys are some of the toughest, most savage human beings that that exist, I think. Wrestlers.
Yeah, man.
Wrestlers are mentally and physically very strong and hard to break. You can't almost.
That's interesting too. I mean, we get some freaking real tight situations, right, where your whole face is covered up, just being smashed. You know what I mean? Like your whole mouth and you can't. I don't want to talk. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
But if you wanted to, you want to go there, like it can.
Yeah.
It can. And so you get almost nearly suffocated, not even in a submission.
Right.
Somebody's not even trying to submit you, but you feel like you're about to just like be buried alive by another human being.
Yeah.
In those
would assume.
situations, I feel like that takes some kind of special. I'd put it like this: we got some screws loose. Connor.
Yeah, something's
We
not.
got some screws loose up there.
I agree.
but they're the right ones for what we do.
I agree.
But it takes a special kind of person to just keep coming back to that.
Yeah, and to show up and knowing how hard the work's gonna be and everything, and just it's all right, we'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a whole lot of dynamics about, you hear about this in high school wrestling, the absolute most. And it's a turnoff for so many that wrestling is gay and that the uniform is gay. And do you ever hear about that in jiu-jitsu in the community? Not in the
Uh
community, but outside the
oh,
community.
certainly,
It's
of
like,
course. When
what,
especially watching like UFC, if you go
yeah.
or MMA,
Yeah.
UFC obviously is the one you're usually watching when you're out at a restaurant or whatever, and you hear someone else talking about it that has no idea what's going on. Yeah, you hear a lot of that stuff sometimes, and yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gay, and shit, even if it was, it's 2019, right? What does it really matter?
You see martial arts ever becoming a school sport or more recognized in Western
I
culture?
hope so. I think I think it could be. I'd love to see it. I mean, I guess I don't know where.
You see karate.
Yeah,
Karate's a big
I,
thing, but it feels like it's dying in a big way.
yeah. I mean, if anything,
To me,
yeah, I agree. Jujitsu's definitely on the rise. Being the fact that it's been proven to be so effective in self-defense
yeah,
and martial arts, mixed martial arts, that I think we're gonna just keep seeing more and more and more of it, and more people are gonna get involved. Already, there's ADCCs going on right now. There was like 7,000 people in the stadium
wow,
watching. That's different.
and it's still young. You
It's
know,
yeah, and relatively in America, it was introduced in America in 1993.
wow,
So yeah,
super
it's
young.
very young. I would say it's been around for thousands of years you go back to Japan, but as far as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and it being introduced to the U.S., it's not long.
Introduced through the UFC.
Exactly, that was when Hoist Gracie came in and choked everybody out from all these different martial arts, and they were like, "Wow!" And he was smaller than all those guys, and that
Right,
that was why everyone was like, "Okay, I got to start training Jiu-Jitsu."
right, right.
So,
And that's such a cool story because action speaks so much louder than words.
100%.
Showing up in a gi
Yeah,
and going to a cage match with no freaking gloves on.
yeah, you're putting it all out there, and not only was he putting his physical health on the line, obviously you do that anytime you fight, but he was putting his family's name on the
His
line, his
lineage.
lineage, and the amount of pressure that was on that guy to succeed there must have been, I can't even imagine, and he did it. He
Right,
won, it was
right.
beautiful.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
And the way that even his relative
Mhm.
Hickson Gracie was a
Mhm.
huge, again a huge proponent of knowledge
Yeah.
of what jiu-jitsu actually can do and how powerful, how effective it can actually be.
Mhm.
But with that, I think with great power comes great responsibility.
No doubt.
And like you said, those guys are some of the nicest and some of the most humble and well spoken.
No doubt. Yeah, I
It's
agree.
impressive.
That's been a huge part of why I've really fallen in love with the culture.
Hmm.
It's really it's just it's a good group of people for the most part. You know,
So if people are trying to learn more, what's the best actions they can take if they're just like kind of real, shy about it?
I'm available for privates. We can private lessons at any time. I charge
Sure.
$40 an hour. But other than that, just if you want to learn jujitsu, you just got to show up. You show up to the fundamentals classes,
Yeah.
and if like I said, if you show up twice a week to jujitsu for 2 years, you're gonna see a huge difference in when you first started
Hmm.
to where you got to.
Hmm.
You know,
Big time.
so I think the biggest thing I tell people when they're first starting that are very you see this especially in young males because I was the same way. They want the knowledge and they want it now, and they want the results now too. And the
And they want
big
to fight too. They want to just get in there and roll.
yeah. And the biggest thing that I tell those guys is stay patient, keep putting the work in, and the results will come.
Such is life, brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then Lake Effect BJJ on Instagram,
Correct. Yep. We're on Instagram. And then we also have a Facebook page.
website,
Yep. Yep. If you go to Google, you just type us in, you'll find us.
right? And then the class schedule is going to be pretty much every single day.
Correct. We have a fundamentals class every day of the week. We do fundamentals every night, Monday through Friday at 6:15, and then we
Right.
also have some early morning classes.
So you got 6 and 6,
Yep, we
both
have
sides of the clock.
Yep, we have 6 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then we have a fundamentals class at 10:30 a.m. Tuesday and Thursday. And after you've come to fundamentals and you've come to about 15, 20 classes, then you move into the intermediate classes and you just start rolling. Then you start training live, and it becomes more and more fun the farther you get into it.
And notice too, this gives people a reason to stay in shape,
Yeah.
you
Oh
know,
man, yeah.
because they have now a barometer. You know, people in their daily life might not have something that tests them physically,
Right.
and then it can be humbling, but it can also be motivating
Yeah.
to get in there and feel like, oh boy, I'm out of shape. You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and jiu-jitsu will do that for you if you
Quick.
feel. Yeah, yeah. Yep.
It'll do it to anybody,
Mhm.
anybody.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, it's I've seen it transform people's bodies even, that train, they come in and they're
Trent lost 100 pounds.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that's actually exactly who I was thinking about was
Dude,
Trent. And
Trent lost 100 pounds.
yeah, and he looks great, man, and it's awesome. Man, Nick, when he started training, he was like just over 300 pounds, he's lost.
320.
Yeah.
You know,
And yeah, that to me, that's inspiring. That inspires me a lot, and it makes me want to work that much harder to just give people everything we can.
right? Because look how fortunate we are, right? To
Yeah.
go in there and train and be in shape and
Yeah.
feel good about training.
100%. And I know, like, I guess for the people that, they feel like they're so far out of shape that they could never get into shape, I just want to tell you that's not true. If you get in and you put the work, like I said before, just slowly, incrementally, you'll see it. You'll see the results, and you'll feel so much better.
It's never too late.
It's never, and yeah, it's never
That's
too
the
late.
thing I hear too.
Ever.
Right?
It's never too late.
I'm old.
Yeah, I saw, going back to Masters Worlds, I saw these two females competing, and they were easily in their 70s, blue belts. And it's like, tell me it's too late when
Come on.
when you're 40. You know,
Right.
it's not.
It's not.
start
it's never
whenever.
too late for you.
Ever. So, yeah.
That was a great roll this morning, by the way, too.
Thanks, brother.
Big time.
Thank you. Thank you. I love training with you, man.
Big time.
It's better, like you said, it's better than when we trained over at the old place, when we both, neither of us had nearly as much technique as we do now, and it was just a lot more banging heads. And
Right.
to me, that's been one of the biggest and coolest evolutions I've seen in in our community of jiu-jitsu, is that we're growing, clearly,
Right. And the thing is too is I got a respect for you that I don't have for other people in my life.
You build that when you train hard with each other, right? Like
Yeah.
it's almost, you can't really build that relationship through any other means. And like it's crazy how much you appreciate it too. Cuz like how to find somebody that's willing to do that and train that hard, it's not always easy, and you just build such a respect for each other through that hard training, cuz you're essentially going through very difficult things together. Even though you're basically competing against each other, you're still going through it together.
Right.
And that's neat.
Right. That builds some of the strongest relationships.
Yeah.
Right.
It's neat. I even have guys that like I just competed against one time, but we had such a tough battle
Right.
that like it's almost I hold a lot of respect for them, and they become your friends. That's another thing about competing, not only with your training partners, but a lot of the guys I've competed against now, I'm friends with. I see them, and it's, hey man, how's it going? You know how challenging what you're doing is, and you're both putting that work in.
It's that
So it's
mutual
just,
respect.
yeah,
Right. That they're willing to go there. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the same for any relationship, whether it's a family member, right?
yeah,
If you go through a hard time with a family member, you're
Yep.
that much stronger on the other side of it,
yep,
right?
Yeah.
When you go through something like that with a friend or in a relationship, whatever,
You're
you
right.
go through that together, and you're able to look back on it. You got respect for that person that is forged by
Yes.
adversity.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's some of the neatest. That's I think that's partly why I feel so close to the community of jujitsu too, is
Right.
because like we're doing this together. You know.
Right, and compelled to share it, right?
Yeah.
Being called to share it, and you got a space, man. I'm just happy for you,
Thank you.
big
Thank you,
time.
man. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunities I've been given, and I'm so grateful that I found jujitsu. You know, because I was kind of lost before I did. You know, I didn't know what I wanted, and now it's like it's nice to not have a lot of doubt as far as that goes. Obviously, I don't know. If you ask me where will I be in 10 years, I don't know exactly. I'm very confident I'll be doing jujitsu somewhere and training, teaching, competing, doing what
Turns
I
out,
love.
turns out you'll have everything you need,
Yeah. And
no matter where you're at.
yeah.
So, good stuff, brother.
Awesome, man. Thanks. Thanks for having me on. It
No
was fun.
worries. Till next time, guys.
Us.
Ride the waves, dude.
Us. Have a good one.